The cameras blinked on. The studio was buzzing, but suddenly the air felt heavy. Donald Trump sat in his chair, ready to dominate another live interview, his usual smirk glued to his face. But across from him, not a politician from Washington, stood Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso, dressed in his military uniform, calm yet commanding. At first, viewers expected a heated clash, maybe insults or political jabs, but Ibrahim didn't start with politics. His first words were soft, his French accent carrying weight through every syllable. Our children, they sleep hungry while the world debates numbers. The studio went quiet. Trump blinked, confused. The host leaned forward, sensing the tension. Ibrahim's eyes didn't move. They held the camera, as if speaking directly to the millions watching at home. He spoke of mothers carrying water for miles, of fathers burying their dignity in silence, of children with dreams too fragile to survive. The words weren't dramatic. They were painfully real. For the first time in a long while, Trump wasn't laughing, wasn't shouting. He just stared. And for viewers, something strange was happening. A story was about to unfold that no one could have predicted. Trump shifted in his seat, his usual confidence suddenly cracking. He tried to interrupt, but Ibrahim raised a steady hand and continued. His voice didn't rise. It stayed calm, yet it carried the weight of a nation. "We do not ask for pity," Ibrahim said. "We ask for dignity, for a chance, for the world to see that an African child deserves the same future as an American child." The words cut through the air. The host cleared his throat nervously, unsure if he should step in. The audience in the studio leaned forward, captivated. Some even had tears in their eyes already. Trump's lips parted as if to make a joke, but nothing came out. His usual arsenal of quick comebacks seemed useless in this moment. Then Ibrahim told a story. Just last week, a boy in Burkina Faso had fainted at school because he hadn't eaten in 2 days. His teacher gave him her own lunch, and when the boy opened the bread, he whispered, "Now I can dream." The studio gasped. Trump's hand tightened on the table. Cameras zoomed in on his face. The man who thrived on bravado suddenly looked small. By now, the millions watching at home weren't blinking. Ibrahim leaned forward, his voice growing more personal. "I was once that boy," he said quietly. Hungry, barefoot, staring at the stars, wondering if the world even knew I existed. Trump's eyes flickered. He looked down for the first time. The host froze, sensing that something historic was unfolding. Ibrahim's words painted pictures too painful to ignore. Mothers boiling leaves for soup, young soldiers fighting without boots, children carrying books with no schools to enter. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't blaming. He was simply telling the truth, raw and unpolished. And then he looked straight at Trump. "You built towers that touched the sky. But what value do towers have if children cannot touch their future?" The silence was deafening. For the first time in decades of television, Donald Trump's eyes softened. He shifted uncomfortably, trying to hold his composure. A close-up camera caught it, the glimmer of moisture gathering at the corner of his eye. The audience gasped. The unshakable man, the master of insults, the self-proclaimed strongest in the room, was breaking. And this was only the beginning. The host tried to change the subject, but it was too late. The world was glued to Ibrahim's voice. Every camera zoomed in, capturing his calm expression, the kind that carried decades of pain but also unshakable hope. Ibrahim spoke about a single mother he had met just days earlier. Her husband had died defending their village from armed groups. She now carried firewood for miles, just to feed her 3 children. Her youngest was only 4, but already he knew what hunger felt like. As Ibrahim shared this, the audience in the studio grew restless. Some reached for tissues. Others bowed their heads. Trump glanced around nervously as if searching for a way out. But there was none. Ibrahim wasn't attacking him, wasn't mocking him. He was simply holding up a mirror to the world. Then Ibrahim paused. When we cry in Africa, the world doesn't hear. But today, maybe, someone will. The words hung in the air like thunder. Trump's throat tightened. Millions of people watching could see it. The mighty man was cracking, live before their eyes. It happened in an instant. As Ibrahim's words echoed, Trump's lips trembled. He blinked hard, but the cameras were merciless. A single tear slid down his cheek. The studio gasped. This wasn't a staged moment. This was raw, real, uncontrollable. Ibrahim didn't smirk, didn't celebrate. He simply lowered his head slightly as if to say, "This is not about me. It's about the truth." Trump grabbed a tissue, trying to hide his face. But it was too late. The audience at home saw everything. Twitter exploded. Screenshots spread like wildfire. The man who always claimed strength had shown weakness, and it wasn't out of defeat. It was out of humanity. The host whispered nervously into his mic, unsure whether to continue or cut to commercial. But Ibrahim leaned forward again. "Do you see, Mr. Trump? The tears of one man on TV cannot match the rivers of tears mothers cry every night in silence." Trump froze, tissue in hand. He looked at Ibrahim, not as an opponent, but as a man standing on higher moral ground. The world was witnessing history. By now, Ibrahim's voice carried the weight of an entire continent. The silence in the studio was so sharp, it felt like glass could shatter with a breath. He began to speak about dignity. "We do not ask the world to save us," he said. "We ask the world not to rob us of hope. Give our farmers fair trade. Give our children education. Give our youth a reason not to die in the desert searching for bread." His words weren't complicated. They were simple, they were human. Even a child watching could understand. Trump leaned back slowly, his eyes wet, his face pale. It wasn't politics anymore. It was truth, and it had pierced through the strongest armor. The cameras caught every second. The internet went wild. Commentators couldn't believe it. Ibrahim Traoré, a young African leader, had done what no world leader ever could. He made Donald Trump cry, not with power, but with truth. And yet, viewers had no idea what was still to come. Because Ibrahim wasn't finished, his next words would shake not only Trump, but the entire world watching. Ibrahim's voice softened, but his words cut deeper. He told the story of a mother he had visited in a dusty village just days ago. Her baby had died in her arms from hunger. She buried her child under a tree with her bare hands, because there was no coffin, no money, no one to help. The audience in the studio gasped. Even the cameras seemed to linger longer on his face, unwilling to miss a single word. "This mother," Ibrahim said slowly, "did not cry loud. She cried quietly, because in her heart, she believed the world did not care." Trump's chest rose and fell sharply. His hand trembled slightly as he pressed another tissue to his face. For once, the man who never stopped talking had nothing to say. Ibrahim looked straight into the camera. "If a mother's quiet cry does not move us, then what are we? What is power worth if it cannot protect the weakest?" The silence afterward was unbearable. Even viewers at home whispered to themselves, feeling the weight of the question. Something irreversible was happening in that studio. The moment was unlike anything television had seen. Trump's face was red, his eyes wet, and his usual pride seemed to collapse under Ibrahim's words. The host fidgeted nervously with his papers, unsure whether to cut to break. But the producers knew this was history, and history doesn't cut to commercials. Ibrahim continued, his voice unshaken. "In Africa, when we lose a child, it is not only an African loss, it is a human loss. It belongs to all of us." Trump dropped the tissue, his hand shaking. He tried to form words, but his voice cracked. Millions watching across the world saw it. Donald Trump was no longer the man with quick comebacks and strong words. He was just human. For the first time, he whispered, barely audible, I didn't know." The audience gasped again. Ibrahim didn't move. He simply nodded slowly, as if saying, "Now you see." Tears streamed down Trump's face openly now, no longer hidden. And the world saw something it never expected, the strongest man in politics undone by the quiet truth of an African leader. Ibrahim leaned forward, his uniform glowing under the studio lights. He wasn't attacking. He wasn't shaming. He was simply giving voice to those who could never be heard. "We do not ask for gold or for towers or for pity," he said. "We ask for a world where no child dies because of silence." His words landed with the weight of 1,000 broken dreams. People in the audience were openly crying now. Online live streams were flooding with comments. "I've never cried watching TV before. This is too real. Respect to Ibrahim Traoré." Trump pressed both hands against his face, tears streaming. This wasn't a man defeated by debate. This was a man broken open by truth. The host, finally daring to speak, whispered, "Mr. President, are you okay?" Trump lowered his hands, his face wet, his voice trembling. "No, but maybe that's the point." The world was stunned. Ibrahim had done something no politician had ever managed. He made Donald Trump feel the cries of people he had never seen. And still, Ibrahim wasn't finished. Ibrahim took a slow breath, then leaned closer to the microphone. His tone softened even more. "A child once asked me," he began, "Captain, why does the world not like us? Why do they let us die?" The words cut like glass. The audience froze. Trump's eyes widened, his breathing heavy. "What answer do you give a child when the truth is too cruel?" Ibrahim asked, his voice trembling with controlled emotion. "I told him, it is not that the world hates you, it is that the world has forgotten you." Gasps rippled through the studio. The truth was simple, but devastating. Trump's lips quivered. The cameras zoomed in on his face, showing tears rolling down his cheeks. He wiped them, but more kept coming. "If forgetting a child is easier than helping one," Ibrahim said, "then what does that say about humanity?" The weight of the question fell on everyone watching. Social media exploded with the same words typed over and over. "I'm crying right now." And Trump, once untouchable, looked broken, staring at Ibrahim as if searching for forgiveness. The studio had never been so silent. Even the hum of the lights seemed muted, drowned out by Ibrahim's voice. He shared another story, a teenager who walked for days under the burning sun, hoping to reach school. But when he arrived, the classroom had no teacher, no chalk, no books. The boy sat under a tree and said, "At least I tried." Tears streamed openly down Trump's face. His shoulders shook as he tried to steady his breathing. The world watched the strongest man in politics crumble, not from attack, but from truth. Ibrahim didn't gloat. He didn't smile. He simply placed his hand on his chest and said, "Mr. Trump, we do not need pity. We need respect. We need the chance to dream. We need leaders to see our children not as statistics, but as lives." The host's voice cracked as he whispered, This is unbelievable." Trump lowered his head into his hands. His voice broke for the first time on live TV. "God, forgive us." The words shocked the world. Ibrahim remained still, his eyes filled with something deeper than victory: compassion. Across the globe, millions of screens lit up with the same scene. Ibrahim speaking with unshakable calm, Trump wiping away tears, the studio drowned in silence. News anchors who were live streaming the broadcast choked on their words. Online chat rooms were filled with people admitting they were crying, some typing through their own tears. Ibrahim's next words were steady but heavy. If Africa falls, the world will not stand. We are not separate. We are one body. When one part suffers, the whole body feels pain. Trump's chest heaved. His voice cracked. I never thought of it like this. The host tried to move forward, but the moment was too raw. The cameras captured the unimaginable. Donald Trump reaching out a trembling hand across the table, and Ibrahim, with dignity and grace, placed his hand gently on Trump's. It wasn't politics anymore. It wasn't debate. It was two men, one broken, one carrying the pain of millions, meeting in truth. The world wept that night. And still, Ibrahim had more to say. Ibrahim's eyes lowered for a moment, his voice softer than ever. 2 weeks ago, he said, I visited a small school in Burkina Faso. In the front row, there was an empty chair. The teacher told me the boy who sat there had died. His stomach too empty, his body too weak. The audience gasped quietly. Trump's hand froze mid-air, his tear-soaked tissue hanging between his fingers. That empty chair, Ibrahim continued, is in every classroom across Africa. Children who should be laughing, learning, building tomorrow, gone before their chance even begins. The cameras panned to Trump, his face buried in his hands. The unshakable man was breaking completely. Ibrahim's voice trembled, but never wavered. If we can build rockets to the moon, if we can build towers to the sky, why can't we fill one empty chair with bread and hope? The silence was deafening. Some audience members sobbed openly. Around the world, millions felt the crushing pain of that one empty chair. Trump finally lifted his head. His eyes were swollen, red, his voice broken. I thought I knew suffering, he whispered, but I never saw it this way. Ibrahim looked at him calmly, not with pride, but with understanding. That is why I speak, he replied, not to shame, but to show. Trump's lips trembled. The cameras captured a close-up of a man who for decades prided himself on never bending, never breaking. Yet here he was, undone by the quiet truth of a young African leader. The host, too emotional to continue, sat back speechless. The entire studio seemed to have forgotten they were on live TV. Then Ibrahim leaned in again, his words carrying the weight of millions. The measure of a great nation is not its wealth, but how it treats the weakest beyond its borders. The line struck like lightning. Trump exhaled sharply, gripping the desk for support. It was clear, this wasn't just a political debate anymore. This was a man's soul being tested live before the world. The camera zoomed in. Trump wiped his eyes, but he couldn't stop crying. His voice cracked as he said, I never cried like this, not on television, not in public. But I can't stop. I see their faces now. The audience gasped again. People watching at home broke down with him. Social media flooded with messages. I'm crying with Trump right now. This feels like a funeral for humanity. Ibrahim nodded gently, his eyes steady. Then let those tears mean something, he said. Let them be the beginning of change. Tears that do not lead to action are only water. But tears that move the heart can heal nations. Trump lowered his head, overcome. He didn't try to argue. He didn't try to fight back. He just let the tears fall. And for the first time, the world saw not Donald Trump the politician, but Donald Trump the man, brought to his knees by the raw truth of Africa's struggle, spoken through the heart of Ibrahim Traoré. The world held its breath. What would happen next? The studio lights glared, but no one noticed anymore. Trump's jaw trembled as Ibrahim's words echoed. We are not poor. We are robbed. We are not weak. We are ignored. Yet we still rise. The audience didn't move. Not a cough, not a whisper. Just silence. For the first time, Trump's trademark smirk was gone. His eyes looked glassy. His chest rose and fell heavily. Millions watching at home held their breath. Could this really be happening? Ibrahim hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't attacked. He had spoken softly, like a father telling his children the truth. Children in Africa dig for resources with bare hands, while the world wears diamonds and gold from their suffering, he continued, his tone breaking. Trump blinked hard, his lips pressed tight, as though fighting back something. The silence was unbearable, almost holy. News anchors whispered off camera. Producers froze. Technicians forgot their jobs. Something historic was unfolding, live. What Ibrahim said next would either break or heal the moment. Everyone, Trump, America, Africa, the world, waited on his next words. Ibrahim leaned closer to the microphone. His voice carried a weight that was impossible to ignore. Mr. Trump, America has power. But what is power if it cannot feed a hungry child? What is wealth if it cannot bring dignity? What is leadership if it leaves others in chains? Trump's chin dropped. His hand, the same hand that always pointed, waved, commanded, shook slightly on the table. A camera zoomed close. Viewers saw it. They saw the wetness pooling in his eyes. Ibrahim's voice cracked. Do you know what it means for a mother to bury her child because clean water was stolen by greed? I do. I have seen it. I have carried the tiny body of a child who never saw tomorrow. Tell me, what is greater than saving one life? At those words, Trump's defenses shattered. His shoulders slumped. A tear slid down his cheek, live, unedited, uncensored. Gasps filled the studio. The most defiant man in modern politics was crying before the world. Ibrahim said nothing more. He simply placed his hand over his heart, his eyes glistening, waiting. The video exploded across the globe within minutes. Phones buzzed, social media feeds flooded, and headlines screamed, "Trump cries on live TV." But behind the spectacle was something far greater. People replayed Ibrahim's words again and again. Teachers played it in classrooms. Families watched it at dinner tables. Mothers in Africa whispered his words to their children at night. It was no longer about Trump's tears. It was about the truth Ibrahim had spoken. In Burkina Faso, crowds gathered in the streets, waving flags, tears streaming as they chanted Ibrahim's name. In America, even Trump's fiercest supporters admitted they had never seen him so broken. But the true power lay in the questions Ibrahim had planted. What is wealth if it brings no dignity? What is power if it saves no life? That night, Trump called Ibrahim privately. The call was brief, but what he said leaked later. You changed me. Whether it was true or not, the world would never forget the sight of a hardened leader moved to tears by Africa's cry for dignity. Ibrahim had given Africa a voice, and the world had listened.